Hi and welcome to another Tips from the Hips. And today I'm going to be using my trusty old jet bandsaw to cut some bandsawn veneer. So what exactly do we need to do to the saw so it cuts nicely? So to begin with, I'm going to be using a blade with 3 teeth per inch. They're skip tooth blades, so they've got a big gullet, and they'll clear all the waste from that thick material nice and quickly. It's also a fresh blade, nice and sharp. I've only cut very little material with it so far. I always tension less than the machine suggests, so for this 5/8 of an inch blade I'm tensioning it for a 1/2 inch blade. I have my shop built resaw fence, which is high enough to provide support right the way up the wood that I'm going to be cutting. The resaw fence is clamped tightly to the table and also backed up by the standard fence, so it's not going to move at all. The table and the fence are both lovely and smooth, and I've given them a fresh coat of wax and buffed that off, so these are really nice and smooth, nice and slick. My shop made blade guide and thrust bearing are set up correctly, so we've got the bearings up close to the gullet but not covering it, and the thrust bearing is set about 1/4 thou back from the blade, so about the thickness of a piece of paper. I've measured the blade drift by doing a cut test, and I've made sure that I've set my fence parallel to the cut, so there'll be no tendency for the blade to try and wander for that reason. I'm completely ignoring the angle gauge on the table, and instead I'm just checking it by eye, so adjusting the table tilt until we've got a parallel cut against the fence. I'll set the thickness of cut again by eye, but using a sample that I'm trying to aim for. So this just runs through freely, and that'll allow me a little bit of clean up with the veneer if necessary. I've flattened the donor stock from the side that I'm going to take the veneer, and I've squared around approximately 1/4 of an inch, so it's going to be well supported along its length, so it's straight along this edge and it's also square to this face for the first 1/4 of an inch. I'm not worried about the rest of the material here. It's actually going to ride slightly above the table, so all the cutting is going to be done within that first 1/4 of an inch. A feather board clamped to the table can also apply a little bit of force down at the bottom to keep it against the fence. I've got my personal protection, which is a filtered and vented full face mask, and also some hearing protection. And additionally, I've coupled up an extra dust collection on the side of the machine right up close to the guides. Lower powered bandsaws can really struggle with deep cuts, and rocking the material up and down, keeping it against the fence, can really help. It reduces the effective cut depth and your saw will cope a lot easier. One down, several more to go. For woodworking tips from the hips and much more, subscribe now, and if you share this video, I'll send you some positive woodworking vibes.